And of course, this morning we're looking at two very important topics as well. On the back of what's been trending since the 4th of August, where the president made a statement rejecting the notion that Ghana was founded by one man alone, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. There have been a lot of comments, arguments, facts flying here and there, letters that were written many, many years ago to the British Parliament, etc., indicating that, well, whereas some people agree to what the president is saying, there are many more who reject his notion as well and insist that even though many people contributed towards Ghana's independence, it was one man who led that charge and eventually won independence for us. And so we'll be getting into that conversation also on the back of the fact that former Speaker of Parliament, Honorable Michael Quay, has also spoken, and he says that NPP should be credited for the human rights protection in this country and not the Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And so we'll get into that. And also, a very key member of the NPP has been speaking. And in fact, he's advising his own party to admit their mistakes and apologize to Ghanaians if they want to go ahead and break the eight. Will the apology even make any difference at this point, looking that we have only 4 months to elections? We have Elikem Kotoko. He's a deputy national organizer for the NDC. Good morning.
Good
morning.
How you doing?
Bella, I could be better.
Yeah, what's going on?
A lot is not well. I'm sure that you're very much aware of the untold economic hardships that are being brought on us. And if care is not taken till date, we are told it's Russia-Ukraine war, it's COVID-19, it's this and that. Not mismanagement, not the inefficiencies, not corruption. But we have a mate who is spending 8 years to learn to drive, which is new. I have not had a mate learn to drive for 8 years, now saying that even before I can take out betting tax, before I can take out e-levy, unless you vote for me to get into government, when he's already in government.
But he says he's not in charge.
Well, he has always touted himself to have instituted over 30-something policies. So how was he in charge at that time then? The hypocrisy of cherry-picking and the inconsistencies have not helped. But this is Ghana. Ghanaians are equally very attentive and watching. So
we'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes.
You never know. Maybe if they apologize, Ghanaians might change their minds. But also joining us in the studio is Nanaya Sapong. He's a political aide to Alan Chemanting, who is the founder of Movement for Change. Or should I say one of the founders? At this point, that's where...
Movement for Change is that which he founded.
He founded, okay.
Then the Alliance for Revolutionary Change,
okay.
Partnership.
That's a partnership. Okay, I'm just checking so that we know where to put the apostrophe when we're saying Founders Day. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yourself?
I'm good, thank you very much. You've had a good week so far. I mean, yesterday was a holiday, so...
Of course, but not for somebody who is seeking to help Ghanaians up the economy. Not for somebody who is seeking to take the steer, as they say.
Why were you once a mate too?
We've never been a mate. There is no mate. I mean, that's another history. There is no mate in terms of the presidency. You can't be a mate. The president has a co-driver as a vice president. That is what you are, the constitution, the seat. But of course, between Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we were in Bono East and Bono, and the response was so positive, and it tells that indeed Ghanaians are tired, Ghanaians want to change, Ghanaians want to move forward.
Okay.
With the number of youth that came out to actually welcome Alan Chemanting to the Tichiman market and the Sunyani Wednesday market, meant so much that indeed the youth are yearning and that they see him as somebody who is able to come create jobs and come help move the economy forward. And it's been so good. And the weekend has been so marvelous with the new program that we have, you know, the Afrafranto radio online, where Alan is holding programs and actually taking his time to discuss the issues or the great transformational plan today.
I'm wondering if he discussed history yesterday as part of it. But let me just introduce my third guest on the show. Dr. Kwame Asante is a senior political science lecturer at the University of Ghana, and he joins us via Zoom. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning.
Thank
Bella,
you for joining us.
How are you, my sister?
I'm fine, thank you, sir. How about you?
Ade.
You did, eh?
Yes,
well, it's good to have you. How was your holiday yesterday? What were you up to?
very tiring. I
Oh.
was, working against deadlines, and at the end of the day, I was able to submit a few things. But I enjoy work.
Okay.
I enjoy work.
Well, it is well. It is well. For God and country. But also, good morning to our viewers on Facebook. I have Luther King Jr. on there. Good morning to you. To Nelson Yesuto, Kofi Akotia, I agree to your message. Please make sure that we get to 2K. And also to Ababio Maoli, good morning to you. To Nelson again. To Julie Belinda Obri says, good morning to you all. Good morning. Malcolm, Kofi, Avaga, Priscilla Ajiapo, and also to Atami Jonah and Agongo Roja. Good morning to all of you. And if you also want to join in the conversation, we're streaming live on Facebook at TV3 Ghana. Let's get into our first story for today. And yesterday, I believe that the entire country went to history class just trying to understand exactly what the real history of Ghana is, whether we should, attribute Ghana's independence to a number of people or just to the Osajefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And that was on the back of a statement that was made by the president as we marked the 4th of August as Founders Day. And he said that he rejected completely the notion that Ghana was founded by Kwame Nkrumah alone. Now, when he made that statement, of course, a lot of history scholars came out to dispute that fact. A few of them probably even agreed with the president. But there's even more to this conversation, and it is coming from the former Speaker of Parliament, Professor Mike Okoye. And he says that Ghanaians owe their human rights protection to the NPP and not to Dr. Kwame Nkrumah of blessed memory. Let's listen to exactly what he said yesterday as he was addressing some young people at a mentorship program. It was organized by the NPP Council of Elders. Listen to him.
It's brought about this kind of thing. Under Nkrumah, you could be detained almost indefinitely. Why? First of all, PDA allowed your detention for a 1958 law for 5 years. When it got to 64, he amended it and said, after that, you could be given a renewal for another 5 years. Almost indefinite. Nobody likes that today. Nevertheless, they see a hero in the man who perpetrated it against the people of Ghana. It's a contradiction in terms. We must claim it. And we must know that if you love your freedom, you must love the NPP in Ghana today.
Well, the Right Honourable Speaker, Professor Michael Okoye, of course, the former Speaker. But this is what he's saying, that if you love your rights as humans in this country, then you must love the NPP for being the forebearers, more like, of human rights in the country. Elegem, I'll start off with you. I mean, we've moved from now not crediting just Kwame Nkrumah as the founder, but also talking about human rights and how the NPP was the one that restored the rights of Ghanaians in the country.
But, first, let me say good morning to Dr. Ntumi, proprietor of Rinse Royal Montessori, and also wish one Ebenezer Tete Shiate a happy birthday. I never took time to listen to what I considered to be nonsense. That is what I considered, what the former speaker said, that a country of ours that has lived all these years, known its history, known who our founder is, known the history even of the NPP itself. And you see, before I come to the substantive matter, do you realize that today we can say it was not just sheer coincidence that Mati Opoku Prempeh, the running mate of Dr. Alhaji Baomia, mentioned that you're Kwame Nkrumah. If you watch what the document, J.B. Dankwa's letter to
the British Parliament,
he also said, look, dear Mr. What's the name? Obdam also, I exceedingly regret delay in replying to your 2 letters. That man, Kwame Nkrumah, that was how he referred to Kwame Nkrumah then. Then you have Napo also saying, You're Kwame Nkrumah. And so there has been some deliberate hatred for the man Kwame Nkrumah.
Now, why are you connecting the two? This is a letter that was written many years ago.
This is all within the DNA of the same political party we are talking about. This is the mindset of a certain regime, something they don't wish to change from. So when you have the likes of people, Napo, saying the things he said, then feeling compelled to now come and apologize, do you think you need to take that apology serious? It was just born out of the sheer outcry by the Ghanaian. Now, when the Professor Michael Quay has for some time now been on this tangent, I recall he wrote some book or some time ago trying to rewrite the history of Ghana. I have forgotten the content, but I recall very well the numerous, it was subject for debate at a point in time. And then today, they are again trying to say that, look, we cannot single out Kwame Nkrumah to be the founder of Ghana. When we take the 2016-2020 elections, who won the elections? Is it not Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo? Did he govern alone? Did he campaign alone? Do you ever hear anybody saying that the 2016 election was won by Alhaji Bawumia? So this is common knowledge. This is common sense. And if people who have gotten even PhDs and are called professors, it's Professor Michael Quay, right?
Yes, Professor Michael Quay.
And it again lays credence to what that gentleman in Netherlands keeps saying, that his passport, Dutch passport, is valuable compared to the Ghanaian PhD. The NPP has consistently made nonsense of education whenever they have to talk.
Oh.
And that is just the truth.
Hold on to this
Yes.
for me. Dr. Asante has to go into a class, so I just want to pick his thoughts on this very quickly before he leaves us. Sorry for keeping you waiting, Doc. But you've also listened to that tape of Professor Michael Quay, who says that when you look at the history of human rights in this country, it's the NPP that is credited for it. Again, let's go back to history. The Preventive Detention Act, which was passed in 1958. So, of course, for those of you who may not know, so this act was supposed to prevent any sort of dissent during the time when the Osajifo was president. And so any opposition that spoke against him, you'd go into jail for 5 years. And then eventually, we're told that just when he was almost going out of power, he extended the time. So it says initially the Preventive Detention Act provided for a maximum of imprisonment for 5 years without trial. Like all dictators, and this is something I'm reading, Nkrumah considered that to be long enough to silence the opposition and independent dissident voices. As the 5 years approached its end for those initially detained in 58, he realized the nefarious objectives of the act could not be achieved, and so he extended it to, a longer period. And then you read the history books again, and it says that it was the former president, of course, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's father, back in the day, he was a ceremonial president, who contributed towards the 1969 Constitution when it came to human rights. This is probably the reason the professor is saying that if you look at human rights protection in this country, it should be attributed to the NPP. Do you agree to that?
It's a very interesting debate, but let's look at it this way.
Okay.
I admit that Nkrumah was not a saint. He ruled and had problems. There's no doubt about that. PDA and its extension and all the problems it caused. All right. We are very much alive to that. So that can be said about Kwame Nkrumah. Yeah. But the other bit of it is that Prof also ignored the fact that the NPP today is born out of a certain tradition, which includes the NLC, all right? NLC, National Liberation Council, all right? During the tenure, they accused Nkrumah for having detained people without trial, which is wrong, which we condemn. But they also introduced Protective Custody Act, where they also detain the people, release people from Nkrumah's jail, and then detain others. So was it not amount similar to what? Robbing Peter to pay Paul? That tradition is also there. Remember also that they also arrested Boy Moses, put him in a cage, drag him in the street of Accra, read the literature. Very inhuman treatment given to somebody who was loyal to Nkrumah. Grab him, put him in a cage, drag him on the street of Accra. the history is there. So that is also another dark story of the UP tradition, which we know. We know that. We also know from the NLM days, a lot of, violence that took place and the rest of them. So all the political traditions have had their fair share of the human rights violations of that were committed people against people of this country. That should not be shoved under the carpet. That's my professor who taught me politics in Ghana, but I disagree to some extent, some of the things he said, even though I agree to some of the things too, I said. But moving forward, we believe that they should, for sincere and honest discussion of these issues, I believe that they should be able to, come out with the balance sheet, the pluses and the minuses. For me, that will speak volumes of the important discussion that people of this country need to know. You need to talk about the strength of all the regimes and talk about their weaknesses as well. So that at the end of the day, if we want to leave history as a proper guide, people will know what went wrong, what went right. And that, for me, should be the basis of the conversation. But to, make it as if that any other regime was, like the UP regime, was very much good in terms of human rights, I disagree. They had also their flaws. And so was the situation under Nkrumah also. But having said all this,
okay.
Hold on, please. They should not also lose sight on the fact that the U.S. State Human Rights Report on Ghana for the Fourth Republic is abundantly clear about human rights violations that have occurred in all the regimes. And I want the scholars to go in there and look from 1992 up to date, regime by regime, and they will acknowledge human rights, who was without human rights, and who had, human right, bad human right record, and the rest of them. These are abundantly clear, and they are in the literature. And I urge people to go and read, and you will see all the regimes in the Fourth Republic had their share of the human rights violations one way or another.
But do you think this is probably a comeback from the professor, looking at how, documents and letters have emanated from this conversation about, the late J.B. Dankwa writing letters to Parliament, asking that they do not grant us independence almost immediately and all that. And so he's probably trying to get Ghanaians to understand that as much as you're trying to paint the old NPP regime black, there were some good things that they also did, which is what he's trying to touch on.
Or if that is what he's saying, there's nothing wrong about it. But I want him to put the records straight and set it in context and be able to bring out, as I said, the balance sheet, the pluses, the minuses. Because when you leave some out, we, his students, will also bring them out. And Prof knows that what I'm saying is nothing but the truth.
Do you get a sense that there's a deliberate attempt to distort history to favor the NPP and, of course, their contribution probably towards independence at this point? Do you get that feeling when you listen to what the president has said, you listen to other party members, and, the constant disrespect, more like, of the Osajifo?
The disrespect towards Osajifo, totally wrong. But the history of Ghana remains the history of Ghana. There are aspects of it which is very, very true, and there are aspects people are creating to make a meaning. My great teacher of history, Professor Adufening, tells us that he was quoting for Hugh Trevor Roper. He said, history is how we have arrived here from where we come from. So there is always the two parts. The juicy part, he said, it looks like mango. The juicy part, the pulp, and then the seed. The seed is fact, incontrovertible fact. And there is what the interpretation will add onto the seed. That is the pulp, the juicy pulp. So people get into the pulp and want to create a certain, situation for it to appeal to you so much. But the fact remains what? Fact. So yes, some will controvert the whole political history of this country. But the real history is there for the world to know.
All right.
That yes, Kwame Nkrumah came, ruled, had his challenges, but he lived way beyond his contemporaries.
Okay.
There's no doubt about that.
All right.
We know that the UP tradition also had played their part, all right, but they also had their challenges, and that should be set in context. What the president said about Founders Day and all that, I am in that position. because it's not only one person who fought for the independence of this country. If people get it like that, then they got it wrong.
Okay.
Because in 1800s, we had somebody called Kwekwiaka, who was the king in Nkrumah, preventing the British from spreading their tentacles to Nkrumah. He's saying that Nkrumah belonged to Nkrumah people. What was he talking about? He was fighting for independence. You remember, the capital was in Cape Coast, and the head of the place, that's the chief, King Aguri, was wondering why the British will establish a court system, will not give him opportunity to rule his people the way tradition and custom requires. So he made noise that he resisted the British administration. He was grabbed, sent to Sierra Leone. They manhandled him. They brought him back only to come here and die. Up to date, nobody has even honored him. But what was he fighting for? He was fighting for independence. The people of La stood up against a very frivolous tax that were going to be put on them. They resisted. They bombed them, and they still fought against that. That said, we can also talk about the fact that before Nkrumah came into the Ghanaian political scene in the 40s, the struggle for independence has started. There is no doubt that Nkrumah also served as a catalyst, speeding out the processes and all that.
Okay.
But if you put all these two together, you realize that Founders Day cannot be attributed to one person. But if you look at all these things, they all worked towards the attainment of what? Independence. And that also, let me add, that even cocoa politics, which Professor Michael Kwe taught us, politics in Ghana, the fact that the Ashanti stood up against the prices of cocoa, which were very high, and that they were receiving pittance, and for that matter, they resisted and argued that, look, all the resources, including cocoa and so, but the majority of them come from what? Ashanti region, and they don't see why they will not develop Ashanti region and all that. So they protested, wanted to secede and all that. That cocoa politics also became part and parcel for the struggle against independence and the rest of them. So a lot of people contributed. It cannot be Nkrumah alone. So that one, if the president said, I am on that score, I'm with him.
You agree to that, okay.
Saying, undermining Kwame Nkrumah, that one, anybody who undermines the Millennium Mine, I challenge that person.
So quickly,
way beyond.
Quickly before you go, I know you have to go, but quickly before you go, so does it mean that even if, you know, a different party comes to power, we still have to maintain the 4th of August as Founders Day?
Oh, there are too many holidays. I believe that we must scrap a number of them and begin to turn our backs to the sun and work. And then we'll not go to Burkina Faso and buy tomatoes from a desert, a country that virtually is being taken over by rebels and all that.
Okay, I want to understand your point. So should the 4th of August be scrapped as well?
I am saying that there are too many holidays. I want a regime to come look at them and then leave a few ones that will be memorable to us.
But you're not hitting the nail on the head. I'm asking specifically the 4th of August.
I am saying that I have not wrapped my hand around this issue to know exactly which one should go. But I'm saying that we have too many, that we need to clear a number of them and get space for what? Productivity. For me, that is. Remember, Nkrumah said that after gaining political independence, we need economic independence. Okay. And that means that we need what? Hard work, and then we'll be able to produce what we want to produce.
Thank you very much, Doc.
Going around the world with a cup in our hands.
All right. Thank you. Dr. Kwame Asante, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. He's a senior political science lecturer at the University of Ghana. Elikem, sorry to have cut you, but you've heard from him, and he agrees with the president when he says that, you know, let's not attribute the founding of Ghana to just one person.
Well, that is his view, and I agree with him if that he's expressed his view anyways. But like I was saying, if we even talk of the 2016 elections, which President Akufo-Addo was the greatest beneficiary, he led that election. He won that election. Is that not what we always say? Why has he never disputed that to say that he never won that elections alone, and it was the NPP that won the elections, and then it was Alhaji Bawumia who helped him and all of that? So this is very common English, which everybody should understand. Nobody is disputing the fact that there are other comrades who helped Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah to gain independence and do what we did. But for some people who we know, who have been infidels, who were people who did not even believe in independence at the time, who wished that the colonial rule was prolonged so that they continued to benefit and subdue their own people, suddenly now come out to want to pontificate, glorify themselves, excite themselves, and say that their fathers, their mothers, their relations were the very ones who cannot be left out and took active part in gaining independence. And this you see, this shallow approach to debates makes me wonder if ever I would also want to even acquire a PhD, if the NPP will be the yardstick.
Oh.
So sad to say. So sad to say. Because, for instance, you see, the NLC, through the Protective Custody Act, detained more people than even the PDA.
Yep, you have some facts to back that, because I don't have those numbers.
Well, they did more of that because they felt that after Kwame Nkrumah had left and they tried to release the people that Nkrumah had detained, they also now need to go after all the people. And they did much worse. Are these not the same people who attempted so many assassinations on Nkrumah's lives? And they dare want to talk about democracy and freedom or what? Even today, as we speak, what are we witnessing under this same NPP? Do we truly have even media freedom? Do we have free speech? Are people not living in fear? Have we not had people like Kofi Kumsin, Nyahota Mekolo, and co. all tell us about the character of President Akufo-Addo? Are we not seeing that be happening on a daily basis? And I feel sad that young folks like myself, who are of my age, will sit down to allow Professor Michael Quay to indoctrinate them on the history of this country, and most particularly, just because they want to project their party in a certain limelight.
What's wrong if that's where they want to belong?
Is it sudden that, and you see, how come that when even President Kufuor was president, all these things never showed up, all these things never surfaced? It's only President Akufo-Addo who has become president, and then suddenly the history books have to change. We have to change all manner of things to suit someone who has become a plutocrat. And so when you have a leader who is so much tensed and fixated with power, there's so much saturation in the whole system. They feel that they want to have their way and do all manner of things. The question one is asking is that even under the present dispensation, under the current NPP, are we really enjoying freedom and democracy the way it should be? Isn't it true that almost all the state institutions have been compromised? Must we not now be thinking about how to work to restore their independence, to restore their integrity? Can we say a lot of independence even with our police service? Can we say much of our military? Can we say much of the other state institutions? Have we not had a lot of concerns to raise about how state institutions are being run now? Even if you work there and they trace to see that you write just a single phrase on Facebook that is opposed to them, they take you on. They ask you to proceed on leave. They transfer you somewhere. They are doing all these things, and they dare want to talk about democracy, and they want to rewrite the history of Ghana. They want to be accorded some kind of dignity as what? As the frontiers for Ghana's democracy. I cannot fathom why sane thinking people would even sit for these characters to be indoctrinating them as young men and women.
Nanaya, where do you stand? I mean, of course, you've been a member of the NPP in the past, and so I can just imagine if this probably was or is the ideology of the party. Is that what you'd say?
This is history. This has nothing to do with political party. History is history, Bella. You can't change history. Yeah,
but you seem to listen. You listen to party members within the NPP, and you get the same ideologies being propagated out there.
The history of TV3 is the history of TV3. Whether the board changes, whether management changes, history is history.
So what then is the problem? Why are we getting this from the NPP?
The problem is when you have a group of people who wants to put their mentor or their idol above that of others, and they think that we should have everybody worshiping what they believe.
Who's this idol? Is it the president?
And what they want to worship. And so from my days in Bethel Methodist in Tamale, I have always learned one thing, that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was the one that led the independence of Ghana. But unless otherwise, you didn't learn that one in school.
I mean, we all did. Professor
Michael Quay, I'm not surprised. I don't know why everybody seems surprised. In 2017, am I right? A program that was hosted by Paul Adum Paul Adomotri that had to do, I think they held it with IEA, something. That was the first time I heard him trying to rewrite the history of Ghana. And the whole of the country rose up against him. Nobody, I don't think anyone would ever challenge Professor Michael Quay on his credentials when it comes to academia, the history. He's taught a lot of people, a lot. Most of our doctors who are teaching in universities today are all students of Professor Michael Quay. And I do not think that he has forgotten himself, that what he taught yesterday is still relevant today. And he cannot take those words, he can't take that knowledge out of the minds of his students. Unless otherwise he comes to tell us that the history he learned and that which he taught is wrong. If not, I think that what we should be doing is rather debating on the economic freedom of this country. That is what is most important. I agree with the historians. Yes, I mean, the history has to do with where we are and how we got here. The lessons we have learned, keeping our heritage, protecting that which we have. But what is most important to the youth of today is how to get jobs. What is most important to the youth today is not to get engineers who would go to the motorway and have concrete patching with quota. They will kind of bit me on quota. I mean, that is what we should be dealing with. I mean, if you read history, you and I would agree that J.B. Dankwa wrote a series of letters. Even to the extent that he wanted the head of the Queen on our currency. There are two ways to the coin, two sides of the coin. We have the bitter side, we have the sweet side. Nobody, not even the CPP, can tell us that J.B. Dankwa has not been part of our history. Nobody can tell us that Dr. Buzia has not been part of our history. But what we are saying is that somebody would have led the team to independence. And that somebody we have always learned is Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. J.B. Dankwa at the time, as the doctor you interviewed, the historian you interviewed stated, he thought, he and his people felt that Ghana wasn't ready. They felt that, listen, let us go into it gradually. Not that they did not believe that Ghana did not deserve independence, but they felt that we're not ready. We had to go steadily. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and few others also felt that, listen, we cannot do it that way. Independence of a nation, the sovereignty of it, comes with a lot of economic benefits, comes with us controlling our own affairs. And so there is a need for us to grab it now and deal with other matters later. And that was how he came in. And so, Bella, we shouldn't, in my view, with all due respect, we shouldn't waste executive time trying to rewrite history when it cannot be rewritten. Nobody is saying that we are not recognizing the other contributors. Nobody is saying, ever. I don't think I have heard anybody say it. And this is undebatable. I mean, how on earth would you say that we should be thankful to an individual for introducing human rights into our constitution?
Well, he says the party, the NPP.
In 1948, after the First World War, am I right? Rennie Kassin, I think when he went to the UN, that was the first human rights declaration. Ghana joined the UN in 59, am I right?
Yes.
The history in Nkrumah,
In the 50s, yes.
and we all know
that once you are part of these international bodies, it is there, it's clear. It's, the standards are there.
It was 57, 8th March 1957.
8th March 1957. And so 48 to 57, first Declaration of Human Rights. And then you come to tell me that somebody who then came to the team that wrote or helped in writing the
69
the 69
Constitution.
Constitution was the one that introduced human rights. Atabraka. Indeed, we respect their credentials. Nobody would doubt their competences when it comes to history. But the books are there. We can all read and write.
I mean, there's been an attempt. I remember that, when there was an uproar about lack of textbooks in the schools, eventually, when some
Now,
of them
my
came,
fear-
we saw
My fear,
that some parts of the history had been rewritten.
my fear is that they should not go to change the books that are being given to the primary schools and the JHS. Because there have been attempts to do that. And when you see some of these people come out openly to begin to speak like this, then we should be thinking of what they are doing backstage.
Are you speaking from experience because you've been in that party and so you know?
We are speaking
What
from
their shenanigans
experience
may be.
where we had LGBTs issues hidden in textbooks and we didn't know. I'm speaking from experience where they attempted somewhere 2017 or 2018 to rewrite the history of this country. That is the experience I'm speaking from. And as I've stated, this history of Ghana has nothing to do with a political party. We have to stay focused. We should spend time to debate on economical freedom and how to pursue economical freedom. We should be looking at creating jobs. We should be looking at improving where our forefathers have left. We should be looking at what we have done after Temamoto Way. We should be looking at how we would create agro-parks, just as stated in the Great Transformational Plan of Alan Chomantin. How we would create agro-parks to increase food security.
Okay.
And not, as the doctor said, go into a desert land to import tomatoes.
Well, the question would then be that should the ruling party even go ahead to apologize, first of all, for the economic hardships that Ghanaians are enduring at the moment, if they really want to continue ruling this country. But before we get into that conversation, Julie Belinda says that we need to rescue this country. Empress Wana says that with the way Nanado is going there, he shouldn't come and change our national anthem, pledge and flag, we beg. Okay, Nelson Yasuto, all we know and learnt in school is Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. NPP should go and form their own country and mislead them. Nkrumah lives on. Behi Nab Yembil says that when I heard President Nana Dankwa talking about the Founders Day initially, I thought he was hosting What Do You Know quiz. Kelvin Iyasho, all my life, what I was taught and what I know is Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. The rest can go and dance off beat. Okay. Abdul Basit Isa says, we the youth of Ghana know only one founder, and that's the late Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the Millennium Man. Honorable Chinia, okay, no, I'm not going to read this one. Ababio Maoli, okay, this one says that Obiba Papa Nketia says, Elikem agrees there are more founders of Ghana and not only Nkrumah, yet he wants us to celebrate only him. Double standards at its greatest pinnacle. Elikem, I'll let you respond to that shortly. And it's important to recognize that Ghana's history cannot be manipulated to favor any narrative or individual, especially when it comes to the legacy of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. While we acknowledge that the journey to independence was a collective effort, the foundation of Ghana as a nation was undeniably the brainchild of Dr. Nkrumah. He was the visionary leader who championed the cause of independence, and no amount of revisionist history by Michael Kwe or President Akufo-Addo can change that fact. The attempts to rewrite our history to suit a particular agenda will not stand, as the truth about Nkrumah's pivotal role in founding Ghana is well documented and recognized by Ghanaians and the world alike. Just a few WhatsApp messages quickly, and good morning to you, sir. Okay, he says that, good morning, Bella. What is Speaker Okwe saying? Since when did human rights become the gift of anybody? Is he saying that, but for the NPP, we didn't deserve human rights? Did they take part in writing the 92 Constitution? Fake know-it-alls parading as intellectual. Mr. Kakra is someone, good morning to you, and thank you for your message. What did the forebears of those who overthrew Nkrumah achieve for their descendants to hate him so much? How many of the so-called Big Five did you see on the podium when Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was declaring independence for Ghana? The folks in government should concentrate on fixing the economy rather than chasing the ghost of Kwame Nkrumah. That's Chris from Ashali Botwe.